Welcome to Tutorials with Tori. Thanks for joining me back here. Today we are working on part 2 of our little bear hat in Pixie Dust. And as you can see, I've got my main body complete. And for me, since I'm making the toddler size, I worked it to 5 inches from the cast on edge. But you can see in the pattern, it has all the information for what to work for your size if you're doing the newborn, baby, or child size instead of the toddler. So now I'm on to the setup row for the crown decreases. And on this row, we are going to be placing markers to indicate where we will work our decreases. So for the toddler size, let me get back to the beginning. We are going to place markers every 10 stitches. For the newborn, you're going to place them every 8. For the baby, every 9. And for the child, every 11. So pretty easy to remember there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to continue doing that for this entire round, working the set amount of stitches and then placing our marker. And I will join you back here. As you can see, I have my markers placed and we are back at the beginning of the round. So we are ready to work our first decrease round. And for our decrease rounds, we are going to knit to 2 stitches before the marker, and then we're going to knit 2 together. So here we go. 2 stitches before, and then knit them together. So on this round, working in this manner, that is going to decrease our total stitch count by 6 stitches. And we are going to alternate for this section, the first section of the decreases. We are alternating a decrease round with an even round. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work a couple more rounds until we get to the point where the circumference is too small to fit on our 16-inch circular anymore. And I'm going to show you a couple different methods for working the smaller circumference. If you are working the baby or newborn size, you are already working on double pointed needles, 2 circular needles, or magic loop, but I just want to show that to everyone so you could see, or if you were unsure of how to do that, I'll be right back. All right, so I have completed an even round and another decrease round, and I'm back at the beginning. So what I'm going to do is show you how to switch over to double pointed needles. Grab a DPN and start working onto them. So I'm working with a set of 5. So I'm going to divide my remaining stitches by 4. So I'll have 1 working needle and then 4 needles holding stitches. So here, now I'm going to move on to the next needle. So then I just let that needle go and grab the next one. Keep going until I've got all the stitches onto my double pointed needles. And what you can do too, once you have them on, if you need to rearrange, since this is an even round, you don't have to worry about counting stitches or anything, just making sure that your markers stay where they should. That guy there. Here we go. So beginning of the round marker. Pop that guy down. So take a look here, and actually not too bad. I do have this guy that has quite a few stitches on it, so I'm just going to rearrange a few of those stitches, and then I'll meet back here and show you how to work our next decrease round on the double pointed needle. Okay, so I've gone through and rearranged things a bit more to my liking to make the knitting a bit more comfortable. So now I'm on to my third decrease round in the first section of the crown shaping or the crown decreases. So I'll show you, get my extra needle, how that looks. And we're doing just like we did on our circular. We work to the last 2 stitches before the marker and knit them together. Right, so I'm going to finish this decrease round, and then on the next even round, I'm actually going to show you first how to work in the round using magic loop. So if you don't have double pointed needles, I'm going to show you 2 other options for crown shaping, or you can also work the entire hat in them. All right, I've completed my decreases and I've got my remaining stitches on just 2 double pointed needles at this point, and I've removed all my markers. All that's left to do before we get onto the ears is fasten off these stitches. So for that, I like to just slip them onto my tapestry needle. And then pull that yarn through and pull it tight to close that hole at the top. And then we're gonna pull that to the inside of the hat and weave in that end. And the great thing about this yarn, the chenille texture, makes it really easy to weave in the ends because it's sticks to itself, so you don't have to worry about these ends, working themselves loose. So once you've got the ends woven in, we're all set to get going on adding our ears. So now that we have the main portion of our hat complete, we are ready to make the ears. Of course, if you're after a plain hat, you can stop right here. But next I'm going to show you how to make the ears. I've already got one complete, and I'm going to show you how we make that. Now for this part, I like to use my double pointed needles. I work with 3 on this portion. The ear has 20 stitches, so I just like to do 10 on each needle and then have a working needle. And at first I just cast my stitches all on the same needle. And as usual, I'm going to do a long tail cast on. It's just my preference. If you have a preferred cast on that you like better, feel free to use that. So I have my 20 stitches cast on, and now I'm going to split them. So I have 10 on each needle. And with this, I did do the long tail cast on, as I said, and I like to leave a long tail so I can use that later when sewing the ears onto the hat. All right, so now that we've got all our stitches positioned, we are ready to start knitting. And for the ears, we are just going to knit 6 rounds even. And when working on a small little piece like this, I don't really worry about placing a marker. You can just use your tail as a reference point to know once you've gotten back to the beginning or end of the round. So I'm going to continue until we get to the ear shaping. All right, now that we've got our 6 rounds complete, we are going to be working our shaping rounds for the ears. So for that, I'm going to knit 1, slip, slip, knit the last 3 stitches, and then knit 2 together, and knit 1. And I'll do that. We're going to do that on both needles, the exact same thing. And I'll show you, I do my slip knits a little differently. I do it all in one motion instead of slipping them. No, it's a little hard to tell, but I insert knitwise and insert purlwise and knit together. That's just if you're looking for a different way of doing slip knits. I just find it quicker and neater, but whatever you like, that works. That's the great thing about knitting. You can kind of switch a lot of these different decreases around, especially the left-leaning ones. There are a whole bunch of different ways to do that. So that's our first decrease round. And you're just going to do that 2 more times until we have 4 stitches left on each needle, or a total of 8 stitches. And then we're going to do a 3 needle bind off. So I'll meet you back here once I've got those rows complete. I've completed my decreases for the ear, and now we are ready for our 3 needle bind off. Now, normally you would worry about the seam being on the inside, but due to the fuzzy nature of this yarn, you can't tell, so you can just work it just like this. And especially since we are already on our needles perfectly aligned, we're going to, this was the last side worked, so I've turned it, but we're going to leave the yarn over here and we're going to knit these 2 stitches together and slip them off both needles. So we'll insert into this stitch on the front needle and the stitch on the back needle, and then knit them together and slip that off. And then now that we've got 2 stitches on this needle, we're going to pass one of those stitches over. And we are going to repeat this until we finish. So knitting 2 stitches together, slipping them off, and then passing the first stitch over the second. And then I've got my last set here. The last set's always a little tricky because they all just want to jump right off the needles. And then I can put one down, pass it over. Now I'm ready to cut my yarn. All right. And then I'm just going to pull that up through the last loop. And then all we have to do is take this end and pull it to the inside. And then we are ready to sew the ears onto our hat. So I've got my first ear sewn on, and what I'm going to do is use that as a guide to help me place my second ear. I used the decrease lines to help me with my placement. I like the ears on this a little closer to the top than further down on the sides. And how we're going to weave them in, we've got our long tail from the cast on, and I've threaded that onto my darning needle or tapestry needle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little trick that I like to use by taking, if you're like me and have a large collection of tapestry needles, you can use those to help you hold your ear in position. And this is also good if you want to kind of move around and be like, no, that's a little too high. Here, so I've got that there, and that looks like it's going to be perfect once this is sewn on. So when we're sewing the ears on, we're going to take the tail, insert it into the hat, and then pull it up and through and out the back. And when sewing these on, since the ear is a double layer, since we worked it in the round, you want to make sure to catch both of those layers. And then we'll go back down into the hat. And you'll continue in that manner. Right. Pull one of those out. You can also use locking stitch markers to help you hold the ears in place, and they're even better because unlike tapestry needles, especially the slick metal ones like I have, they're not going to slip out. They'll stay in place. Once you've finished sewing your ears onto the hat, only thing left to do is weave in those ends. And luckily the chenille yarn is really nice because it's very grabby, so it's easy to weave in and secure those ends without worrying about them coming loose. And once all your ends are in, your hat is all set. So I hope you had fun knitting the little bear hat with me, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks. Bye.